Arthur Finch was 72 years old. His joints ached on cold mornings. This October morning was particularly cold. A sharp wind rattled the windows of his small house. Arthur pulled on his thickest sweater. He went outside for his morning task. He needed to bring in firewood for the stove. He walked slowly across the yard. The grass was stiff with frost. Autumn leaves, brittle and brown, crunched under his boots. He reached the woodpile behind the shed. It was a messy stack of logs he'd been meaning to organize for years. As he reached for a log, he heard a sound. It was a tiny, high-pitched squeak. He stopped. He listened. It came again, a desperate little cry. Arthur squinted. He thought it was a mouse, or maybe a field rat trapped under the wood. He poked a log with the toe of his boot. "What's all this noise?" he muttered to himself. He was a man who preferred quiet. He bent down slowly, his knees groaning in protest. He pushed aside a loose piece of bark. There, nestled in a pile of wood chips and dead leaves, was something small and spotted. It was no bigger than his closed fist. It shivered. Its eyes were sealed shut. It opened its tiny mouth and let out another weak cry. Arthur's first thought was to back away. This was not a mouse. It was a cat, a wild cat. He could see the faint spots on its fur and the hint of tufts on its ears. A bobcat kitten. Wild animals were trouble. His quiet life did not need trouble. But the kitten's cry was so helpless. It was a sound of pure loneliness. It tugged at a soft place in Arthur's old heart. "Clara!" he called toward the house. His voice was rough, but carried easily on the cold air. "Clara, you need to see this." His wife appeared on the back porch. Clara Finch was 70. She moved with a quiet efficiency that came from a lifetime of managing a home, a husband, and 2 sons who were now grown with their own children. She wiped her hands on her apron. "What is it now, Arthur? Did you finally find a unicorn in that junk pile you call a woodshed?" she asked. "It's not junk," he grumbled automatically. "Just come look." Clara walked over. She peered down at the spot Arthur was pointing to. Her face softened instantly. All her maternal instincts, which had been resting since her boys left home, came rushing back. "Oh, the poor, poor little thing," she whispered. "Arthur, we can't just leave it here to die." "What are we supposed to do with it? It's a bobcat, Clara, a wild animal." "It's a baby," she corrected him, her voice firm. "And babies need help." She was already heading back toward the house. An hour later, they were on the phone with the State Wildlife Rescue Center. A woman named Sarah, who sounded both kind and very busy, listened to their story. 3 weeks old, you say, and dehydrated." There was a pause. Arthur could hear the rustle of papers. "Listen, our facility is completely full right now, and you're a long drive from here. If you're willing, I can guide you through temporary care. We need to keep him stable for a few days, then we can figure out a permanent plan." Arthur looked at his wife. Clara was already in the kitchen. She was warming a bottle of kitten formula she had found in the back of a cupboard, left over from a stray they had helped years ago. Arthur sighed. He had been married for 48 years. He knew a lost battle when he saw one. "All right, Sarah," he said into the phone. "Tell us what to do." What neither Arthur nor Clara had thought about was Coda. Coda was their 6-year-old Siberian Husky. He was a magnificent dog. He had a thick coat of black and white fur and eyes the color of a frozen lake. He looked like a wolf from a nature documentary. But his appearance was deceiving. Coda had the personality of a court jester. He loved everyone. He greeted the mailman with wags and a strange grin where he pulled his lips back to show all his teeth. It looked fearsome, but was a sign of pure happiness. When they brought the kitten inside, they had a new problem. The kitten was wrapped in one of Clara's good kitchen towels. Not the one with the embroidered chickens, Arthur had protested weakly. It was no use. Coda was lying on the living room rug. He was chewing on an old rope toy. The moment he saw the bundle in Clara's arms, his ears shot up. He dropped his toy. He trotted over, his head tilted, his blue eyes were full of curiosity. "Easy, boy," Arthur warned. He stood ready to pull the dog back.
But Coda did something amazing. He simply sat down. He tilted his massive head to one side, then the other. He seemed to be trying to understand this new squeaking toy. Clara had already named the kitten Leo. She knelt and placed the bundle on the floor. What happened next became a legend in the Finch family. Coda's entire attitude changed. His goofy expression melted away. It was replaced by something serious and gentle. It looked almost fatherly. He lowered himself to the floor. He lay on his belly, making himself as small as a 70-pound dog could. He slowly stretched his neck forward and sniffed the tiny kitten. Leo, who should have been terrified, did something just as amazing. He wobbled forward on his tiny, unsteady legs. He lifted a small paw and bopped Coda right on his big, wet, black nose. "Well, I'll be," Arthur breathed. Coda's tail began to wag, a slow, steady rhythm. He let out a soft puff of air from his nose. It was a gentle greeting. From that moment on, Leo decided this big, fluffy dog was his parent. The first few weeks were chaos. Leo needed to be bottle-fed every 3 hours. Clara became a dedicated nurse. Arthur found himself setting alarms in the middle of the night. He would stumble into the kitchen to warm the formula. Clara would be cooing at the tiny Bobcat. "You know, we're basically grandparents to a wildcat now," Arthur grumbled one morning at 3 a.m. His gray hair was sticking straight up. "Oh, be quiet," Clara said, smiling. "Look how he holds the bottle with his little paws." The real show, however, was Coda. The Husky had fully embraced his new role as a father. He was clearly confused, but he was also very determined. When Leo cried, Coda would rush over. He would try to comfort the kitten the only way he knew how. He would drop toys at Leo's feet. Within a week, Leo's bed, a cardboard box lined with a heating pad, was surrounded by gifts. There were tennis balls, a squeaky rubber hot dog, and Coda's most prized possession, a worn stuffed squirrel named Squeaky. "He's trying to be a good dad," Clara said one afternoon. She was watching Coda carry carefully his food bowl across the floor. He placed it next to Leo's box. "Bobcats don't eat dog food," Arthur pointed out. "He doesn't know that," Clara replied. "He's doing his best." Coda seemed to believe that if he just showed Leo the right way, the kitten would learn to be a proper puppy. He would demonstrate important dog skills. He showed Leo how to fetch a ball. He showed him how to shake a paw for a treat. He showed him how to beg with sad eyes. Leo just watched with a blank, feline stare. The comedy really started when Leo began to copy his new father. It started small. Leo would follow Coda everywhere. His little spotted body would wiggle as he tried to walk like the big Husky. When Coda went to the back door to be let out, Leo would sit beside him. He would meow pitifully until someone opened the door for him too. "No, sweetie, you used the litter box. Remember the box in the laundry room?" Leo would look at her. His expression clearly said, "But Dad doesn't use a box." Then he would go back to waiting at the door. Then came the howling incident. Huskies are famous for being talkative. Coda had long, rambling conversations with himself, with the television, and squirrels outside the window. His special talent was a long, mournful howl. He reserved it for ambulance sirens. One evening, Arthur was trying to watch the news. Clara was knitting in her armchair. A fire truck wailed in the distance. Coda's ears perked up. He lifted his head and let out a long, beautiful "Ahoo!" From his spot on the coffee table, Leo watched. He was fascinated. Then, to everyone's surprise, he opened his tiny mouth and tried to make the same sound. What came out was a scratchy, high-pitched meow. "He's trying to howl," Clara gasped. She dropped a stitch in her knitting. "Sounds like he's choking on a feather," Arthur said, but he was smiling. Coda looked thrilled. He howled again, encouragingly. "Ahoo!" Leo responded with an even louder cat scream. "Meow!" They went back and forth. It was a strange and hilarious duet. Their neighbor sent a text message. "Is everything okay over there?" Arthur texted back, laughing. "Just a father-son singing lesson." As the weeks turned into months, Leo grew. He was no longer a tiny ball of fluff. He was a lanky, adolescent bobcat. He had huge paws he hadn't grown into yet. His ears had long black tufts at the tips. His spotted coat was beautiful. He was unmistakably a bobcat. But in his mind, he was a husky.
He learned to play fetch, but he was terrible at it. He never brought the ball back. He tried to wag his short, stubby tail. It looked more like a nervous twitch. He even tried to eat from Coda's food bowl. That ended with dry kibble scattered all over the kitchen floor. Leo looked confused. He couldn't understand why his food was so hard and crunchy. The morning routine was Arthur's favorite part of the day. He would wake up and find Coda standing beside Leo's bed. The dog would gently nudge the bobcat with his nose. Leo would stretch like a king. Then he would climb on the Coda's broad back for a ride to the kitchen. "You're spoiling him," Arthur would say to Clara. She would be preparing 2 different breakfasts. Special wet food for Leo, which he ate without much excitement, and Coda's dry food, which Leo always tried to steal. "Oh, please," Clara would shoot back. "I saw you give Leo a piece of sausage yesterday when you thought I wasn't looking." "That was medicinal sausage," Arthur said with a straight face. "He looked a little pale." Clara rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. The truth was, they had both fallen deeply in love with their strange little family. The real test came a few months later. Sarah, the woman from the Wildlife Center, called with a strange request. "We have an adult male bobcat here," she explained. "He was found in the same area where you found Leo. There's a small chance he could be the father. We'd like to bring him over for a supervised meeting. We want to see if there's any sign of recognition." Arthur felt a knot in his stomach. "And if there is, you'll take Leo?" Sarah paused. "Arthur, I'll be honest with you. Leo has been raised by humans for months now. He's bonded with you, with Clara, and especially with your dog. The chances of him being successfully returned to the wild are very low, but we need to see how he behaves around his own kind. It's for his official record." They agreed. Clara spent the next few days worrying. What if Leo wants to go with his real dad? What if seeing another bobcat makes him wild again? "Then we'll figure it out," Arthur said. But he was just as worried. He had grown to love the spotted cat who thought he was a dog. On the day of the meeting, Sarah arrived with a large animal carrier. Inside was a big, powerful adult bobcat. He was 3 times Leo's size. He had an intense, wild gaze that reminded you these animals were predators, not pets. They set up the meeting in the fenced backyard. Sarah brought a portable chain-link enclosure. She released the adult bobcat into the enclosure. Titan immediately started pacing, sniffing the air with an air of authority. "Okay," Sarah said, "bring Leo out, but keep Coda inside for now. We want to see Leo's natural reaction first." Clara carried Leo outside. Her hands were trembling a little. Leo's ears swiveled forward. He caught the scent of the other bobcat. His eyes grew wide. "Easy, baby," Clara whispered. She set him down on the grass, a safe distance from the enclosure. For a long moment, the two bobcats just looked at each other. Titan let out a low, chirping sound. It was a bobcat greeting. Leo's ears flattened for a second. He took one step forward, then another. He was cautious, but also curious. "That's good," Sarah whispered. "He's showing the right amount of respect for an adult male." Titan chirped again. He moved closer to the fence of his enclosure. Leo sat down. He tilted his head, a perfect imitation of Coda. Then he opened his mouth. He let out his howl, that same strange, strangled yawl he practiced with his husky father. Titan, the magnificent wild bobcat, looked completely baffled. Did he just try to howl at him?" Sarah asked, looking stunned. "He thinks he's a dog," Arthur explained. He was trying hard not to laugh at Titan's confused expression. Just then, Coda decided he had seen enough. He had been watching anxiously from the kitchen window. With a determined push of his nose, he managed to slide the back door open. Arthur made a mental note to fix the broken latch. "Coda, no!" Clara yelled. But it was too late. The husky bounded into the yard. He wasn't aggressive. He was on a mission. He ran straight to Leo. He stood between the young bobcat and the enclosure. His fur was slightly raised. He was a furry, protective wall. He was sending a clear message. "This is my kid. Back off." Leo's mood changed instantly. He brightened. He rubbed against Coda's legs, purring like a motor. Then he did what he always did when he felt safe. He climbed onto Coda's back for a ride.
From his safe perch, he looked at Titan with mild curiosity. It was as if he was saying, "Nice to meet you, but my dad's here now. I'm good." Titan, for his part, seemed to accept the strange situation. He gave one last chirp, then turned away. He went back to exploring his enclosure, completely uninterested in the weird dog-cat creature. Sarah watched for a moment, then she shook her head and smiled. "Well," she said, "I think that settles that." The assessment was clear. Leo was too bonded with his adoptive family to ever be a wild bobcat. But Sarah had a solution. "We can give you an educational permit," she explained later, over coffee and a slice of Clara's apple pie. "Leo can stay with you permanently. He'll be registered as an educational animal. You might have to do some presentations at local schools or conservation events. He can be an ambassador for his species." "You mean we can keep him?" Clara's eyes filled with tears of relief. "Legally and forever," Sarah confirmed. "But I should warn you, bobcats in captivity can live for 15 years or more. This is a long-term commitment." Arthur reached over and took Clara's hand. "We're retired," he said. "We have nothing but time." "And Coda?" asked Clara. "They can stay together?" Sarah smiled. "I've seen a lot of strange animal friendships in my career, but this one is special. As long as they are both happy and healthy, I see no reason to separate them. But you might want to explain to Leo that he's not actually a husky." "We've tried," Arthur said dryly. "He's not listening." Life settled into a new happy normal. Leo grew into a sleek and powerful adult bobcat, but he still preferred to ride on Coda's back, even though he was now almost half the dog's size. Their morning routine continued. Coda would wake Leo, they would eat breakfast together. Leo had finally accepted that cat food was his destiny. Then they would patrol the backyard together, protecting it from dangerous butterflies and falling leaves. The school visits were a huge success. Arthur discovered he enjoyed teaching children about wildlife. Leo, who had learned to walk on a leash just like Coda, was surprisingly calm in front of crowds. He would sit proudly beside his husky father. Sometimes Coda would start howling, and Leo would join in with his strange meow yowl. "He still thinks he's a dog, doesn't he?" a little girl asked during one visit.
He knows he's a bobcat now, Clara explained gently, but Coda will always be his dad. Family isn't about being the same. It's about love. Like how my stepdad isn't my real dad, but he's my dad, the little girl asked. Exactly like that, Clara said, her eyes getting misty. The years passed peacefully. Arthur took up wildlife photography. Coda and Leo were his favorite subjects. Clara started a popular blog called My Life with a Dog Cat. Their sons and grandchildren would visit. The kids loved playing with their Uncle Coda and Uncle Leo. But time waits for no one. Coda, who was already a middle-aged dog when Leo arrived, began to slow down. His muzzle turned from black to gray, then to white. His steps became slow and careful. The vet visits became more common. Leo seemed to understand. The bobcat who used to pounce on Coda for playtime now spent hours curled up beside him. He would gently groom Coda's fur. He would bring his old father gifts, lizards and mice he caught in the yard. He would lay them proudly at his paws. "He's taken care of him," Arthur said quietly one evening. He was watching Leo carefully clean Coda's ears while the old dog slept. "They're taking care of each other," Clara corrected him. Coda's last winter was a difficult one. The cold air hurt his arthritis joints. Arthur built a small ramp so Coda wouldn't have to use the back steps. Clara cooked him special soft food to tempt his appetite. And Leo never left his side. When Coda's last day was here, they knew it was time. The great husky who once greeted every morning with a happy howl could barely lift his head. Their kind vet, Dr. Chen, came to the house. "He's had a wonderful life," she said softly. "He was part of a very special family." Leo seemed to understand. The bobcat who used to pounce on Coda for playtime now carefully climbed onto Coda's bed and curled his large, muscular body around the frail old dog, just as he had done when he was a tiny kitten. He started to purr. It was a deep, rumbling sound that seemed to soothe Coda's ragged breathing. It was as if Leo was saying, "It's okay, Dad. I'm right here."
Coda's tail gave one last weak thump. His pale blue eyes met Leo's wild golden ones, and then, surrounded by his family, the husky, who became a father to a bobcat, slipped peacefully away. They buried Coda under the big oak tree in the backyard. It was his favorite place to nap on sunny afternoons. For 3 days, Leo sat by the grave. He refused to come inside. He would sometimes let out his strange howl meow, a sound that was now heartbreakingly sad. "What are we going to do, Arthur?" Clara asked, her voice choked with tears. "He's never been alone." "We give him time," Arthur said, his own heart aching. "We give him time to grieve." Slowly, life found a new, quieter rhythm. Leo grieved. He spent hours lying on Coda's old bed in the living room. He was surrounded by the old toys the dog had given him. He carried the stuffed squirrel, Squeaky, everywhere he went. But love is a powerful healer. Leo began to turn to his human parents for comfort. He would curl up on the sofa between them in the evenings. He was too big to be a lap cat, but he would rest his heavy head on Clara's knee as she knitted. He would purr his loud, rumbling purr. "He's going to be okay," Clara said one evening. "We all are," Arthur agreed. On the first anniversary of Coda's death, they had a small ceremony by the oak tree. Arthur had ordered a small stone marker. It read, "Coda, best dog, best dad, best friend." Leo inspected the stone carefully. Then he did something that made Arthur and Clara both laugh and cry. He gently placed his worn-out squirrel, Squeaky, against the stone. It was a final gift for his father. Then he sat back on his haunches, lifted his head to the sky, and let out a howl. It was not his usual cat-like screech. It was a real, true, perfect husky howl, a long, clear note that echoed in the quiet evening air. It was a sound Koda would have been proud of. "When did he learn to do that?" Clara whispered in amazement. "He's been practicing," Arthur said, wiping a tear from his eye. "I hear him sometimes at night." As if in answer, another sound drifted over the fence from the neighbor's yard, a clumsy, high-pitched puppy howl. The neighbors had a new puppy. Leo's ears perked up. He stood on his hind legs, peering over the fence with intense curiosity. He looked back at Arthur, his golden eyes full of questions. "Don't even think about it," Arthur said sternly. "We are not getting another dog." But Clara was already smiling. It was the smile she used when she knew she had already won. Maybe just a visit, to see how Leo does with him. Arthur looked at Leo. The big bobcat was still peering over the fence, his stubby tail twitching. Then he looked at his wife. He sighed. "Maybe just a visit," he conceded. As they walked back inside, with Leo padding between them, Arthur thought about their incredible journey. A bobcat who was raised by a dog who became a father, and two old people who learned that a family can be made of any shape, any size, and any species. "You know what Koda gave him?" Clara asked quietly. "What's that?" "He taught him how to love. He taught him how to be part of a family. That's a lesson that lasts forever." She was right. Koda had given Leo the greatest gift of all, the knowledge that you don't have to be the same to belong together. And Arthur was sure that somewhere Koda was watching them. His tail was wagging, and he had that big, goofy, husky grin on his face, proud of his strange, wonderful, perfect family. Tomorrow, they would visit the puppy next door. Maybe the little guy needed a big brother to show him how things worked. After all, Leo had learned from the very best.